Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Andrew Laidley. Bank of Jamaica BOJ Governor Brian Winter says if macroeconomic conditions continue to be favorable, the central bank will reduce its interest rates. Governor Winter made the announcement at the recent BOJ quarterly press briefing. Here's more. Brian Winter says while interest rates cannot be lowered now, it could happen soon. He says if macroeconomic indicators continue on the current path, lowering interest rates will become a reality.
We don't telegraph an actual rate change because we'll make a decision at the point that we make a decision. But I can definitely be very clear that the conditions are what they are, benign, and as we look ahead, what we project that. Provided our projections bear out, these are the conditions that allow for an accommodative policy to continue, and that will mean, should mean a continuing subsiding of interest rates.
He says the bank conducts studies at intervals throughout the year to determine the movement of interest rates.
Whether a policy rate change is required or not is going to depend on a look at all of the variables, which we do. Since you ask, I can maybe be very clear that the bank has a very structured approach to when we look at rate changes, and we do this on 2 occasions in each quarter, so that 8 times a year we formally assess and look at all the different factors and then come to a decision.
In the meantime, the BOJ governor says the central bank is comfortable with the island's inflation rate right now. However, he says that will change as the target gets lower.
We're quite comfortable given where the target is right now. As we go forward and as the target gets lower, we collectively are going to care much more about whether it misses on the downside, just as much as on the upside. But because we've been in a process of disinflation, the chart you saw at the beginning of this, the chart there now shows you, if you look at the inflation path, you can see that it is a declining one from up in the 13% range.
The Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, says while other Caribbean countries are experiencing economic challenges, Jamaica is not. That's just one of the reasons the IDB is commending Jamaica. The country was recognized for its economic initiatives and positive growth in GDP at a meeting now taking place in Washington, D.C. State Minister in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Favour Williams, who is representing Jamaica at the IDB meeting, says the country's economic achievements could not be accomplished without the support of multilateral partners. During bilateral talks, Minister Williams urged IDB President Louis Moreno to take another look at Jamaica's agricultural sector. She says the aim is to enable small and medium enterprises to gain access to affordable financing, which is critical to the growth and expansion of the agriculture sector. The meeting will last 3 days. Topics being discussed over the period include de-risking and correspondent banking, the development outlook for the Caribbean, and the role of the private sector in the development of the region's economy. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Dr. Horace Chang, says the Port Authority of Jamaica is a good model of what the government hopes to achieve through its strategic growth agenda. Dr. Chang was speaking after a tour of the dredging operations at the Kingston Freeport Terminal recently. More in this report. The Port Authority of Jamaica is set to become a regulatory body for all port activities in Jamaica. In the interim, Dr. Chang says the agency is already delivering positive results aligned with the government's development plans.
While it is designed to be, in the long run, a regulatory authority, it's maybe one of the most entrepreneurial agencies in the government sector and functions really with a commitment and a drive that reflects our own policy to expand the private sector.
He says the Port Authority of Jamaica is also ramping up activities in the business process outsourcing sector, which is contributing significantly to job creation.
They are busy in the business process operating sector. We're in Port Morley starting new facilities and more to come in that area. And of course, we manage the ports for the cruise shippers. So while our Minister of Tourism markets the destination, we ensure that they have quality facilities and destination to come to.
He says the government has plans to improve other agencies to the level of the Port Authority of Jamaica.
The Port Authority plays a critical role and reflects the talent and commitment and entrepreneurial spirit of this agency. We expect, of course, several other agencies in government will watch where they're going and follow suit, because we intend to get the entire government aligned behind growth and development.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says assets owned by the government which are not being fully utilized will be divested. He says this will provide another opportunity for pension funds to invest.
Whether it is, many of the properties that we own, we will be giving the private sector. Well, let me break that down, because when we say private sector in Jamaica, there is a view that it is a limited number of persons who will participate. That's not what we intend to do. The private sector includes the small, medium, and micro business.
However, he says the government's greatest interest is to have many of those assets placed on the stock market,
to allow the individual to buy shares and increase the ownership. And that is our objective. Pension funds can participate, businesses can participate, and the average Jamaican can participate in the ownership, because that too is a strategy for giving Jamaicans pensions.
The Prime Minister was speaking at Sagicor's pension investment seminar held at the Jamaica Conference Center earlier this week. And still to come, latest unemployment figures show that more Jamaicans enter the workforce. We'll have the details when we return. Welcome back. Director General at the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, says the unemployment rate as at October 2016 fell by 0.6% when compared to figures recorded for the same period in 2015. He was speaking at the Institute's media briefing yesterday on the economic performance of the period October to December 2016. Anthony Morgan reports. The PIOJ Director General says the survey undertaken by Statin shows that the unemployment rate at the end of October 2016 was 12.9%. He says despite being low when compared to the similar quarter of 2015, the rate is the same recorded at the end of July 2016.
The male unemployment rate declined by 0.4 percentage point to 8.9%. And the female unemployment rate declined by 0.9 percentage points to 17.5%. The youth unemployment rate was 32.4%, a decline of 0.3 percentage point relative to October 2015.
Dr. Henry says the island's labor force increased by some 30,000 persons compared to the October 2015 figures.
Jamaica's labor force for October 2016 comprised 1,355,500 persons, an increase of 30,100 persons compared with October 2015. The unemployed labor force amounted to 174,800 persons, which was 3,800 persons less.
In the meantime, the Director General says the number of employed persons recorded at October 2016 was over 1,180,000 persons, an increase of 34,000 over the same period in 2015.
An examination of the employed labor force by industry group revealed that 11 of the 16 industry groups recorded higher employment levels. Among the industries which recorded higher employment levels were wholesale and retail repair of motor vehicle and equipment, up 16,500 persons. Construction, up 14,300 persons. Private households with employed persons, up 6,500 persons. and other community, social, and personal service activities, up 5,500 persons.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Meanwhile, the PIOJ Director General says increased expenditure for civil engineering activities helped to contribute to the 0.8% real value-added growth in the construction industry as of October 2016. Anthony Morgan tells us more.
Dr. Wayne Henry says the National Works Agency NWA allocated over $3 billion more for the October to December 2016 period compared to the similar quarter in 2015.
NWA disbursed a total of $5.18 billion compared with $1.78 billion in the corresponding quarter of 2015. Expenditure was largely for the Major Infrastructure Development Program, MIDP, including works on the Mandela and Marcus Garvey Drive road improvement project.
He says more money was provided for the road expansion project in rural Clarendon and for activities undertaken by the Port Authority of Jamaica.
Another area of increased expenditure included work on the Soursop turn to Chapelton Main Road in Clarendon, which increased by $263.1 million to $290 million. Also, Port Authority of Jamaica disbursed $496.2 million, up 73.8% compared with a similar quarter of 2015.
In the meantime, the Director General says growth in the construction industry must also be attributed to the increased activities in the building construction component.
Due largely to increased housing starts to 1,377 units to 1,780 units, increased hotel room construction, the build-out of office space to facilitate expansion of the BPO industry, and other private sector-supported building construction.
For BATV News, I'm Anthony Morgan.
Agriculture Minister Carl Samuda, while addressing concerns that the local pork market is being saturated with imports, said imports of pork belly and tail are declining. He said their imports fell by 400,000 kilograms last year. At the same time, the minister said there's no concrete evidence to support claims that illicit products are being brought into the country in great quantities. He pointed out that the ministry has an import policy for pork. The policy states that only pork tails and bellies should be imported into the country, as the local industry is unable to meet the demand for these items. Mr. Samuda added that the ministry does not intend to issue any licenses for pork in the near future or even at all based on the production happening now. He said data indicates that the local market has been producing very well, adding that production will be monitored so that demands can be met and expanded on a programmed basis. A special budgetary allocation of $200 million has been approved by Cabinet to support the execution of Jamaica 55 celebrations. Cabinet also gave approval for the establishment of the Jamaica 55 Secretariat in the Ministry of Culture, Gender and Entertainment, which will be responsible for the planning and implementation of the year-long activities. The observation of Jamaica 55 will run until December 31, with the main celebration period to coincide with the annual independence celebrations. The announcement was made by Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Senator Ruel Reid, during yesterday's post-cabinet press briefing at Jamaica House. And stay with us. Regional and international stories are next. Welcome back. It's time for regional and international news. A senior Barbados government minister is admitting that his party's economic policies are all wrong for the nation's ailing economy. Barbados' Minister of Agriculture, Food, Fisheries and Water Resource Management, Dr. David Estwick, says his peers has failed to consider alternative approaches, including a plan he had submitted 3 years ago. He said a letter he issued to Cabinet 2 years ago warned the government it was on the wrong course by allowing the Barbados Central Bank to print money to prop up its current expenditure. The issue of printing money has been at the center of a dramatic breakdown in relations between Central Bank Governor Delisle Worrell and Finance Minister Chris Sinclair. Mr. Estwick, a former Minister of Economic Affairs, had recommended at the time that the government negotiate a $5 billion sinking fund from the United Arab Emirates to wipe out the country's debt. The plan had called for the administration to refinance and restructure the public debt, create debt and fiscal sustainability, and engender investor confidence and foreign direct investment. Security and emergency services personnel in Greece have held protests against cutbacks and poor working conditions. The Greek government is implementing large-scale austerity measures to appease international lenders who helped bail the country out of a debt crisis. More in this Al Jazeera report from Athens.
Evangelos Avgeris bought his police uniform and bulletproof vest himself. They cost him a month's pay, about $750, and he spends part of his salary each month to buy bullets for target practice, because training has been suspended. All this has come at a personal cost.
I have a girlfriend and I'll marry her if I were better off financially. If she could find a job too, we'd start a family. But she'll most likely emigrate.
Avgeris can earn a little extra money working weekends, something the force encourages because it's had to cut thousands of jobs.
We've estimated that if every police officer in Athens took the leave time the force owes him, the entire force would have to shut down for 3 months. What makes me very sad is that politicians don't realise we're dealing with human lives here. You can't put a price on the life of an officer.
On Wednesday, the police, along with other security bodies, finally decided to protest, demanding that the government provide training and equipment, but also to have their salaries restored.
5 years ago, the government cut the wages and benefits of the police, Coast Guard, fire service and the armed forces by between 10 and 30%. 2 years ago, Greece's top administrative court ruled those cuts unconstitutional and ordered their salaries restored. But the government has so far given back only half of what it owes them.
Full compliance with the court order would cost $470 million a year. The government recently declared an above-budget surplus of $4.6 billion and spent hundreds of millions giving pensioners a bonus. So security forces feel they've had enough of austerity. They marched their demands to the Finance Ministry and taped them to the door. But the Finance Ministry has kept such a tight rein on expenses to produce this surplus, it's even underfunded itself. Tax collectors have lost almost half their number over 5 years. This week, they held work stoppages.
My colleagues and I put money together so we could buy heating oil for the tax office. When we go out on tax inspections, we put petrol in the cars. Often we never get it back. We even have to supply our own toilet paper.
But the country's security services are now so badly overstretched, they can barely keep their vehicles running. They're hoping someone heeds their distress call. John Psaropoulos, Al Jazeera, Athens.
South Africa's finance minister could lose his job in an expected cabinet reshuffle under the new budget. Trade unions are also threatening a nationwide strike after the government cut the public sector wage bill. Al Jazeera's Tanya Page reports from Cape Town.
Stop the nuclear deal! These protesters want the government to save, not spend, on nuclear power stations and to save the job of Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan in an expected cabinet reshuffle. He's credited with steadying the economy after President Jacob Zuma sacked his predecessor over a year ago. That caused a big fall in the value of South Africa's currency. The two men are said to be at odds, but Gordhan did try to deliver on the president's promise to redistribute wealth by increasing taxes on the rich and boosting the social grants which millions of people rely on.
The budget is already highly redistributive to the poor and the working families. But the budget alone cannot achieve our transformation goals. We need a powerful combination of effective and targeted government delivery of economic programs.
He won't get any cooperation from some trade unions after cutting the public sector wage bill.
And we say to Comrade Pravin Gordhan, who will take the government on, including you, Comrade Gardin, if you do not listen to us.
Nationwide action is threatened. Although economic growth is expected to improve slightly to 1.3%, South Africa's economy faces several threats. They include the possibility of nationwide strike action, which could unsettle investors, stubbornly high unemployment, and the risks surrounding continued political uncertainty. That's led some commentators to describe this as a conservative and defensive budget.
They're expecting quite big changes in the Treasury, and I suspect that we're going to see a cabinet reshuffle where we'll be saying goodbye to Gordon. And you can see statements in saying, look, we need to take seriously the credit rating agencies, we need to have stability. So he's talking to those who are going to come after him.
And if that finance minister isn't considered a safe pair of hands by the stock markets and ratings agencies, South Africa's economy will suffer. Tanya Page, Al Jazeera, Cape Town.
Kenya's parliament is expected to pass a new law to make sure employers hire more disabled people. However, a similar law passed 14 years ago has done little to ensure millions of disabled job seekers get a job. Al Jazeera's Famida Miller reports from Nairobi.
Taxi driver Ibrahim Wafula gives a weekly driving lesson to one of his students. Both are disabled. Ibrahim's leg was amputated in a road accident when he was a child, and he struggled to find work.
If you give a disabled person money, it's just money. But if you can teach him something that will benefit him, it's far better. And I know this is a skill that I can pass on that will help disabled people find work.
A Kenyan law passed in 2003 says disabled people should make up at least 5% of a company's workforce. Kenya's National Council for Persons with Disabilities says there are about 6 million disabled Kenyans. While thousands are looking for jobs, a government survey shows that less than 1% of the disabled are employed. A childhood bout of polio weakened Frederick Uko's legs. After years of battling to find a job, he set up an online platform to link disabled job seekers with prospective employers. He has so far registered 500 people, but says many employers don't understand how to cope with them.
Normally, as an individual who has a disability, you get problems assessing public transport, but also getting into offices, because sometimes you have a third floor, fifth floor office and you're on a wheelchair. So even if there's a job there, you can't go for an interview or you can't drop your CV.
The government says it's working on removing those barriers by introducing a new law this year. It will include sanctions for companies which don't abide by employment regulations, as well as a government committee to monitor implementation. But implementing existing laws has been tough.
The act has been there for the last 10 years, but it has never been operationalized for various reasons. The council has been in existence for over 10 years. Nothing has been moving. So the structures may have not been developed.
400,000 disabled people have registered with the council, leaving many others unaware of government benefits such as free schooling and cash allowances. Some disabled Kenyans remain skeptical about the difference a new law will make for their community, which they say has never been understood. Famida Miller, Al Jazeera, Nairobi.
Talking Stocks is after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. 47 stocks traded today, of which 19 advanced, 20 declined, and 8 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 2,193 points to close at 230,373 points. The junior index advanced by 0.6 points to close at 3,162 points. Over 5 million units traded, valued at more than $113 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the US dollar market, over 163,000 units traded, valued at over 52,000 US dollars. Panjam Investments, with over 2 million units changing hands, accounted for 41% of the market volume. Supreme Ventures Limited was second with over 610,000 units trading. Cable and Wireless, with over 408,000 units, accounted for 7% of the market volume, crossing the floor. Jamaica Broilers Group was the top advancer, up $1.14 to close at $16.19, followed by Honey Bun, up 49 cents to close at $7.91, and Cable and Wireless, up 7 cents to close at $1.40. The main decliners were General Accident Insurance Company, losing 51 cents to close at $3.50, followed by Panjam Investments, down $4.01 to close at $35.03, and KLE Group, down 19 cents to close at $2.67. In foreign exchange trading, the Jamaican dollar lost ground against the US and the British pound today, but gained on the Canadian dollar. The US ended the day selling for 13 cents more than yesterday at $128.14. The Canadian lost 15 cents to the Jamaican, closing the day at $97.41, while the British pound went for $159.58 on average, gaining 47 cents on the Jamaican dollar. And that's all the news we have for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. The Bank of Jamaica BOJ promises to lower interest rates if economic conditions continue to be favorable. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Andrew Laidley. Pleasant viewing.